Single dad CEO found a nurse crying in a snowstorm with her twin babies, not knowing she had lost everything but hope. The wind howled like a wounded animal across the snow-covered mountain road. Flakes whipped sideways in blinding sheets, and the headlights of Elijah Hartman's black SUV barely pierced the darkness. It was mid-December in Montana, and the storm had hit harder and faster than expected. Elijah gripped the wheel tighter, leather, gloved hands tense. Every mile brought him closer to his secluded estate, and more importantly to Micah, his 5-year-old son, waiting with the nanny. On the passenger seat sat a half-built Lego robot, its arms missing, wires dangling. Elijah had promised Micah they'd finish it tonight. He'd promised a lot lately. The dashboard clock read 9:42 p.m. His eyes burned from the day's negotiations. He was exhausted but drove on, guided more by duty rather than comfort. That was his life now. Since Belle's death during childbirth, Elijah had lived in quiet routine, work, parent, repeat. 3 years of building empires by day and heating cranking out dinosaur-shaped nuggets by night. Halfway through a tight curve, something flickered at the edge of his vision, a blur against the white. He slowed, heart tooting, maybe a deer or a snow-laden tree. But then the headlights cut through the storm and he saw her. A woman barely standing, hunched. Not just a woman. She was clutching 2 small children, girls huddled at her sides, arms tangled like ivy. Elijah slammed the brakes. The SUV skidded before stopping. He froze, breath held, staring. Her blonde hair was tied back, strands clinging to tear-wet cheeks. She looked straight at him, wide. Red-rimmed eyes filled not with panic but with bone, deep exhaustion. The girls wore dresses of faded, frayed red, sleeves slipping and threads dangled like ribbons. Their hems were stiff with frozen mud, their legs bare, shoes soaked. One whimpered and buried her face into the other's neck. Without thinking, Elijah opened the door. A blast of wind struck him as he stepped out. Snow clung immediately to his coat, boots crunched through the drift. "Mom," he called over the wind. "Do you need help?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. She just nodded, holding the girls tighter. He dropped to one knee, wrapped his coat around the children first. Their warmth startled him. They shivered violently. The smaller one looked up, eyes glassy, then laid her head back on her sister. As he lifted her, a red thread from her dress looped about his finger. It tugged gentle. He paused, untangled it, then cradled her close. He looked at the mother. "I have a car. It's warm. Let me get you somewhere safe." Her lips trembled. She didn't ask who he was, didn't question, just nodded again. He helped her into the front seat, then he tucked both girls in back, blanketing them from his emergency kit. As he shut the door, he noticed the red thread, and yet still clinging to his glove. It fluttered in the wind, fragile and obstinate, like fate itself. The car was already warm, but Elijah turned the heat higher. The woman huddled in the front seat, arms wrapped tightly around herself, as if she still could not believe they were out of the snow. In the back, the 2 little girls sat bundled in blankets pressed close together. One of them, he wasn't sure which, let out a dry, rattling cough. Without hesitation, Elijah popped the trunk and retrieved a compact medical kit. He always kept it there. Years ago, Micah had struggled with asthma, and Elijah had learned to stay prepared. He climbed into the back seat beside the coughing child and gently placed a stethoscope to her back. She flinched, but didn't protest. The faint wee in her lungs concerned him. But for now, warmth and rest were the best medicine. "You're okay," he said gently, pulling her blanket up. "You're safe now." He returned to the driver's seat and turned onto a narrower road, the tires crunching through fresh snow. Visibility was poor, but he knew every curve. This path led to his private cabin, tucked deep into the woods, a place he had not been to since last winter, which he spent there with his wife. The car was silent but for the hum of the heater and an intermittent sniffling. Then she spoke, her voice faint. "Thank you. I didn't know where else to go." He glanced at her. Her damp blonde hair clung to her cheek. She was young-looking, too young to carry that much sorrow. "I'm Elijah," he said. She hesitated. "Melody Quinn," he nodded. "We'll be at my cabin soon. It's not that far. There's heat, food, dry clothes. The girls can rest." A pause. Then just above the hum, "I lost my apartment yesterday. I've been calling shelters all day. They're full." I sold almost everything just to feed my girls. I only kept their red dresses because they love them." He didn't respond. He didn't need to. Melody stared straight ahead, twisting her fingers in her lap. "I don't have anything left," she said, her voice breaking. Just then, 20 minutes later, the cabin came into view. Lights flicked on with the motion sensor, casting a golden glow on the porch. Melody's breath caught at the sight. The contrast, a chasm between their desperation and this sanctuary, was stark. Elijah helped the girls inside first, then guided Melody toward the fireplace, returning with blankets, towels, and mugs of hot cocoa. The girls' cheeks were pink now, thawing as they sipped from their mugs with trembling hands. In the guest room, Elijah rummaged through a closet and found one of Belle's sweaters, ivory in color, soft, and an oversized fit. He held it for a moment, thumb brushing the hem, then brought it to Melody. "You can wear this," he said softly. "It should be warm." She hesitated, then whispered, "Thank you." He returned moments later with a folded pile of Micah's old clothes, hoodies, socks, slippers. He placed them on the couch next to the girls. One of them reached for a stuffed bear tucked between the hoodies. "That's Captain Bobo," Elijah said, smiling. "Micah used to carry him everywhere." "Micah?" Melody asked. "My son, he's 5 with his nanny right now." She nodded. "You're a single parent too." Elijah didn't answer. He crouched by the fireplace, folding towels and placing them within reach. Melody stood by holding the sweater. Her eyes suddenly welled up with tears. She turned away, but not fast enough. "You okay?" he asked. She let out a shaky breath. "It's just been a long time since someone cared enough to fold a towel for me." He looked at her, firelight dancing across her face. "You and your girls are safe here. That's all that matters." Later, while she was helping the girls into dry clothes, Elijah quietly set a new silver hair clip next to the sink. He had seen the stretched elastic she used, the way strands of her hair clung to it. He said nothing. The girls eventually drifted to sleep on the couch, curled up under layers of blankets. Melody sat close, watching their small chests rising and falling. Elijah stoked the fire, its soft glow filling the room. 3 figures, 2 asleep, 1 silently watching, and a man seated outside. The storm was still going on. Inside the cabin, something fragile had begun to settle. Not just warmth, something closer to hope. The cabin had grown quiet. Outside, the storm had dulled to a steady hush, muffled by thick snow blanketing the world. Inside, only the fire crackled, soft, constant. The twins, Lily and Rosie, lay sleeping on the couch, curled beneath a heavy wool blanket, their tiny fingers still tangled even in sleep. Melody sat at the small wooden kitchen table, both hands wrapped around a mug of hot tea. Her hair was still damp and blonde from earlier. Her hair had fallen loose from the ponytail, and strands framed her tired face. She was staring into her cup, unmoving. Opposite her, Elijah sat in silence, mirroring her pose. The light above them was warm, casting a gentle golden hue across the tabletop and their faces. It wasn't awkward. It was still, like the calm between 2 people who had carried too much for too long. Melody broke the silence first. Her voice was low, cautious. "I was a pediatric nurse for 6 years," she said, eyes on her tea. "At a small community hospital near Boseziman." Elijah didn't speak. He nodded, let her go on. "I loved it, the kids, the chaos, the tiny victories." She smiled faintly. "Then during my 3rd trimester, my husband was in a car accident head-on on his way home from work." Her voice cracked. "He died before I got to the hospital." She blinked hard, forcing herself to keep talking. "I gave birth a month later alone. No family nearby. Went back to work as soon as I could stand. Juggled double shifts, daycare, doctor's visits. I thought I was making it work." Her grip on the mug tightened. "Then the hospital got bought out. Budget cuts. They shut down our unit. Let all of the senior staff go. No warning. No like severance, she was just gone." She finally looked up. No anger then, just exhaustion and pain. And something deeper, something Elijah understood. "I tried to keep up. Took temp jobs, sold things, gave up our apartment when I couldn't cover rent. I thought I could hold on." A pause, a bitter smile. "I was wrong." The words settled into the silence. Elijah set his cup down gently, his fingers resting on the rim. "My wife's name was Belle," he said in a soft voice. "She had a rough pregnancy, but we thought we were through it. Micah was born early, but healthy. Then she had complications. He stared past Melody. I sat by her bed all night, watched the monitors slow, then stop a beat. Then it was just me and a baby. I didn't know how to raise. He leaned back slightly. I didn't take time off, I didn't grieve, just existed. Wake up, feed Micah, work. Repeat for 3 years. Melody's gaze stayed on him. That's what it feels like, she whispered. Like you're underwater and everyone else is breathing. He nodded slowly. I kept hoping someone would notice, she said. That someone would ask if I was okay. Maybe someone would help. She paused, but no one did. Elijah looked at her. Really? Looked. No one helped me either, he said. So, I made myself a promise. He reached into the drawer beside him and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Clearly a child's drawing, in crayon lines. Scribbles, colors outside the lines. He unfolded it and handed it to. It was a picture of 3 stick figures standing under a gray cloud. Raindrops fell, one tall figure, 2 smaller ones holding hands. The tallest held an umbrella over them all. Underneath it, in shaky letters, a lady and her kids. Melody brought a hand to her mouth. Micah drew that last night, Elijah said. He didn't say anything, just handed it to me. She stared at the drawing, silent. He sees you, Elijah added. Even if you think no one does. Tears slipped down Melody's cheeks, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't turn away. The snow did not stop the next day, or the one after that. Drifts rose high along the mountain road, making it impossible for Elijah to drive Melody and her daughters anywhere, even if they had somewhere to go. But she did not complain, not once. Neither did Elijah offer to rush the arrangement. There was an unspoken understanding between them now, quiet, simple and oddly comforting. So they stayed. Melody took over the small, moved around the kitchen, like she had always belonged there. She found flour in the pantry and made cookies with Rosie and Lily, standing on stools beside her, cheeks dusted in white powder. Their giggles bounced off the log walls, waking up corners of the cabin that had been silent for years. Micah had kept his distance at first. He was a quiet child by nature, watchful and reserved. But Rosie, the braver of the 2 girls, marched up to him that first morning with a snowball in each hand and declared a snow war. He didn't respond with words, but when Elijah peered out of the cabin window 10 minutes later, all 3 children, all bundled in oversized coats and scarves, were out in the snow, rolling in it and laughing. It was the first time Elijah had heard Micah laugh like that in months. Inside, the house shifted. Melody dusted window sills, wiped counters, folded the laundry Elijah had left untouched for weeks. She didn't move like a guest. She moved like someone who knew how to build a home, even from broken pieces. She taught the kids how to fold paper cranes from old magazines. Micah followed her. He followed the instructions intently, his tongue poking out in concentration, while Rosie colored the wings with a pink crayon and insisted they could fly if you wished hard enough. Elijah sat at the kitchen table with his laptop, work files open, yet intact. His eyes continued to steer toward the floor, where the children sat cross-legged, surrounded by a mess of paper, markers, and glitter. He had forgotten what that kind of mess looked like, what it sounded like. Later that afternoon, Rosie cried out. Her worn velvet bear, Captain Bobo, had torn along the seam, its stuffing poked out like tiny clouds. She looked up at Elijah with wide, terror-y eyes, hugging the limp bear to her chest. Melody took it from her gently. Let me see, sweetheart. She sat down by the fireplace, pulled a sewing kit from her satchel, and threaded the needle in calm, practiced fingers. Rosie sniffled beside her as Melody began stitching the torn fabric. Micah stood nearby, watching silently. When she finished tying off the final knot, she handed the bear back to Rosie and smiled. There, she said, good as new. Micah's voice was soft when it came, barely more than a breath. Can you fix everything? Melody looked at him. His brown eyes were earnest, serious in the way only a child's could be. Not everything, she said softly. But the things that matter, I'll always try. Micah said nothing, only nodded once before turning and silently joining Rosie and Lily near the fireplace. That was enough. That night, the fire glowed warmly as the children curled up in a pile of blankets and yawns. Elijah had prepared the guest room for Melody, but she never used it. Instead, she slept right there in the living room between her daughters, One arm curled around Rosie, a leg stretched over Lily to keep her warm. Elijah passed by in the dark and paused. She was still wearing the sweater he had given her. Her hair had come loose again, golden strands catching the flicker of the firelight. Her breathing was steady, peaceful. It struck him then this woman, who had landed in a storm, who had nothing but a pair of red dresses and two tiny hands clutching hers, had somehow filled the cabin with something he thought he had lost forever. Life, warmth, home. The snow finally melted. Plows cleared the mountain roads. The sun showed itself again, and life, as it always did, began to move forward. Melody packed up the few things she had brought, and yet she didn't leave. Not right away. That in the morning, Elijah stood by the front door, hands tucked into his coat pockets, watching her zip up one of the twins' jackets. "You and the girls," he said carefully. "You can stay a little longer. A few weeks maybe until things settle." Melody looked up, her face unreadable. Elijah thought for a moment she might refuse out of pride, but then she nodded and whispered, "Thank you." She did not remain idle. By the third day, she was scanning bulletin boards at local clinics, asking around with quiet resolve. She didn't beg, didn't complain. She simply moved forward, one step at a time. Elijah admired her for it, that quiet determination, the way she refused to let her pain be her only story. What she didn't know was that Elijah had already called in a favor. A friend owned a private family practice we're hiring nearby. He mentioned her name once casually. No pressure. That night she came home flushed and aglow, her hands stuffed into her coat pockets. "I got the job," she said breathlessly. "I start next week." "It's not much," she added, a little shy, "but it's something." A week later, she signed the lease on a modest two-bedroom apartment near Micah's school. The neighborhood was quiet. The playground out front was old but clean. There were trees lining the sidewalk. Elijah helped her move in. They didn't drift apart. If anything, their lives were closer. School drop-offs became shared coffee breaks. Grocery trips became full, on excursions with 3 giggling kids in tow. Sunday afternoons were now for watching the children build Lego castles on Elijah's floor and draw chalk galaxies in the driveway. There was no big conversation about it, no labeling. Just presence, just peace. Elijah found himself smiling at things he used to ignore. Melody's soft humming while she packed school lunches. The way she always poured 2 mugs of tea, even when he hadn't said he'd stop by. The sound of laughter in rooms that used to echo with silence. Still neither pushed past the invisible line drawn by grief and time. They lived beside it, a wall of memory neither dared to touch too hard. The fear of loss had carved itself into both of them. Then came Lily and Rose's birthday. Elijah offered to host a small party at his house. Melody hesitated, but the girls squealed with delight, and she gave in with a quiet smile. Elijah strung lights across the ceiling. Micah helped stir frosting. Melody baked cupcakes with bright strawberries on top. Few guests arrived, just enough to fill the room with warmth. When it was time for candles, the 3 children stood close, their faces glowing with excitement. Melody stood a little behind them, hands clasped, smiling gently. That's when Elijah moved in beside her. She didn't speak, didn't look. He reached out his hand. "Dance with me," he asked. Soft music played through a dusty speaker in the corner. The light above them was warm, golden. For a second, Melody hesitated. Then she reached for his hand. They swayed in silence, her head near his shoulder. The children's laughter, a soft hum in the background. No words, only knowing. Later, that as night fell and the house grew still, Elijah entered the study to turn off the lamp. On the desk was a sheet of paper, crayons, stick figures, bright colors. Micah's name was scribbled in the corner. It was a drawing of Melody in a white dress, standing next to Elijah under an arch of flowers. Rosie and Lily smiled up at her feet. Micah was close, holding her hand below it in crooked, determined letters. Elijah sat down slowly. His fingers brushed the page. For the first time in a long time, he let the hope in. The phone rang late on a Tuesday night. Elijah had just finished reading Micah, a bedtime story, when he saw Melody's name flash across the screen and picked up in a hurry. But it wasn't her voice. Rather, it was the neighbor, who sometimes helped with Lily and Rosie after school. She collapsed, the woman said. "Fever, exhaustion, I'm with her now." She needs rest. Elijah was out the door in minutes. When he arrived at Melody's apartment, she was curled on the couch, pale, damp with sweat, her breathing shallow. The twins sat beside her frightened and quiet, holding each other's hands like anchors. Elijah did not waste any time. He brought them all Melody, Lily, and Rosie, and brought them back to his home. Micah met them at the door with juice boxes and a fuzzy blanket already in hand. He settled the girls in Micah's room with warm milk and soft music, then returned to Melody. She lay on the guest bed, eyes fluttering, trying to stay awake. "I'm sorry," she whispered hoarsely. "I didn't want to be a burden." "You're not," Elijah said gently, smoothing the blanket over her. "You're safe. Just rest." But something inside him tightened. For the next 2 days, Elijah handled everything. Meals, kids, medicine, housework. He was organized, attentive, precise yet distant, intent. He didn't linger in her room, didn't make conversation. The warmth turned to politeness, his affection to obligation. Melody felt it like a cold wind through a cracked window. On the third night, when the kids were asleep, Elijah brought her tea. He set it on the nightstand without a word and turned to go. "Elijah," she said softly. He stopped, back still turned. "Are you scared?" He didn't answer right away. Then he turned slowly. His eyes were red, though he hadn't cried. "I'm not scared," he said. But it didn't sound true. He swallowed. "I just can't go through it again, losing someone. I barely made it through for the first time." Melody nodded, her face calm but tender. "You're not the only one afraid." He sat down in the armchair opposite her, rigid, guarded. She continued, "Love doesn't promise you'll never hurt again. It only promises someone will be there when it does." He looked at her really. Looked at the strength in her tired face, at the softness in her voice. "Even after everything. I shut myself off after Claire died," he said. "I didn't know how else to survive. Micah gave me purpose, not life, not joy." Melody's voice was quiet. "And now it all came back, and it terrifies me." A silence followed. Then Elijah bowed his head into his hands and cried. It wasn't loud, but it was deep. Years of holding it and cracked open in one moment of truth. His shoulders shook, his breath caught. He couldn't stop. Melody rose from the bed and crossed the room slowly. She sat beside him and wrapped her arms around him. No words, just warmth, just presence. They sat like that for a long time. The fire was burning low when the tears faded. Melody hushed. "We can't undo what hurt us, but we can choose what comes next." His voice broke. "What if I'm not ready?" "Then we take small steps," she said, "together." Later that night, Elijah returned to check on her. The room was dim. Melody was sleeping, but sitting on the bed beside her pillow was Captain Bobo, Micah's old stuffed bear. Tucked under the bear's paw was a folded piece of paper. Elijah picked it up and opened it. A few uneven words written in crayon. "A new mom doesn't have to be perfect. She just has to be real." He stared at it, his throat tightened. Upstairs, Micah was already asleep, curled beneath the same blanket he'd clung to the night Claire died. And in that moment, Elijah understood what his son had already accepted. They weren't trying to replace what was lost. They were making room for what still could be found. Sometimes love wasn't about protecting yourself from pain. It was about choosing to love, even when it might hurt again. The days flowed easier now. Melody had moved in 3 months ago, not out of necessity but by choice. Her name was on the mailbox now, not in place of Elijah's but beside it. She still worked full-time at the clinic, and Elijah ran meetings from his home office. They had separate calendars, separate coffee mugs, separate morning playlists, but everything else shared. The kids, especially, had merged into one, small, unstoppable pack. Micah had taken on the role of protective big brother, like it was instinct, not assignment. Lily and Rosie ruled the living room with matching giggles and hair clips. On Friday nights, all 5 of them rolled dough for homemade pizza, flour on noses, laughter spilling through the kitchen. Sundays were for pajamas and movie marathons under a mountain of blankets. It felt like a rhythm, one they didn't want to break. It was a crisp October afternoon when Elijah set his plan into motion. The backyard was covered in golden leaves. Melody was helping Rosie thread sticks together for a makeshift fairy tent, while Lily bossed Micah around about how many pillows a castle fort needed. Elijah sipped his coffee and watched them. All of them, his heart aching in the best possible way. He knelt down beside Micah, whispered something in his ear. Micah's eyes lit up. Moments later, Elijah called out casually, "Hey team, come here for a second." 3 little heads popped up from behind blankets and leaf piles. He motioned them over, crouching to their level. "So, I've been thinking." He began, glancing at Melody from the corner of his eye. "Do you think Melody should officially be part of this family like forever?"
Yes!
Lily shouted, before anyone else could say anything. "Totally," Micah added, with a grin. "Can she still make waffles if she's part of the family?" Rosie asked seriously. "I think that's in the contract." Elijah nodded solemnly. "Then yes," Rosie said. Melody was still a few feet away, her hand still on a twig, her smile frozen in surprise. Elijah rose slowly, his voice softer now. "Melody Quinn, what if we made this chaos permanent?" She didn't say anything. Not forthwith. Micah stepped forward, handing her a small square Lego box, one of his custom builds, slightly lopsided and dotted with mismatched colors. "Open it," he whispered. Inside, nestled between tiny plastic bricks, was a simple gold ring. Melody's hands were trembling as she looked up, eyes wide with something between joy and my disbelief. Elijah didn't kneel. He didn't have to. "I know this wasn't the plan. None of it was, but you walked into our storm and somehow turned it into home." The backyard was still, the autumn breeze rustling leaves like applause. Melody's voice cracked. "You sure you're ready for this circus?" He laughed. "I built the tent." She didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said, voice thick with emotion. 1,000 times. "Yes." The children burst into a chorus of squeals and celebratory leaf throwing. Micah jumped into Elijah's arms. Rosie hugged Melody's leg. And Lily demanded to know when the wedding was going to be, and if she could wear sparkles. Later that evening, after the backyard had quieted, and bedtime stories had been read, Elijah found the Lego box sitting on the kitchen counter. He picked it up, smiled. A family made of pieces, none of them matching, all of them chosen. The air smelled like pine and snowfall. And on the fringe of the Montana woods, the cabin glowed under a veil of new snow, the same place where 2 lives had once collided. Now it was dressed in fairy lights and pine garlands. The porch swept clean. A small fire pit crackled out front. Elijah stood near the hearth, adjusting the collar of his wool jacket. No suits, no ties, just him real. Grounded, nervous in the best way. Then he saw her. Melody stepped out from was dressed in a simple white dress that brushed her calves. Her hair tied in a ponytail with the base nestled above her ear. Was the delicate hair clip he'd left by the sink that snowy night. It shimmered under the lights like a quiet memory. She smiled, cheeks pink from the cold. "I was hoping you'd still like the clip," she said. I never stopped. The ceremony was small, 10 people total. Their neighbor, Mrs. Langley, cried before the vows even began. Chairs were lined up in 2 neat rows on the porch. Micah stood proudly between Rosie and Lily, each holding a folded card. When the officiant nodded, the kids stepped forward. Micah began, "We're not just a family because of rings or weddings." Rosie chimed in, "We're a family because we choose each other." Lily smiled wide. "And we don't give up even when things get hard." Elijah blinked fast. Melody squeezed his hand. Then came their vows. Elijah spoke first. "You came into my life, carrying everything that mattered in your arms. And you gave me back something I thought I'd lost. A reason to come home. I didn't save you that night, Melody. You saved me." Melody wiped away a tear. Her voice shook but held steady. "You saw me when I was invisible. You didn't look away. You gave my girls warmth, safety, and showed me that love after loss is still love. Just braver." Their kiss was quiet, full of gratitude and promise. Snow kept like confetti of stars. On that night, there was more to the cabin than music and laughter. It held something sacred, a future reimagined. Later, until after guests had gone and the fire died down, at which point Elijah and Melody stepped onto the porch, sitting side by side and wrapped in a blanket, just as they had many nights before. From inside came the sound of Micah's voice, is heard reading aloud calmly and steadily. Then the father, the mother, and the 3 kids built a house out of snow and dreams, and no one was ever cold again. Melody smiled, resting her head on Elijah's shoulder. "Do you ever," he asked softly, wonder creeping into his voice. "What would have happened if I hadn't stopped that night?" She laughed. I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't put those silly red dresses on them. They weren't preposterous. They were coming undone. Still, he said, those threads pulled me straight to you. She leaned in closer, breath warm in the night air. We didn't save each other, Elijah. He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. No, we made each other whole. And we're not a family because it started perfectly, she said. We're a family because no one walked away. The snow kept falling. Inside, 3 children slept under one roof. 2 girls who no longer woke up shivering, and 1 boy who no longer felt something was missing. Porch where it all began, Elijah and Melody sat in peace, not haunted by the past, but humbled by what they had built. A love born of a storm, a home based on second chances, family chosen not by blood, but by courage. And so, in the heart of a snowstorm, a stranger became a safe place. A cabin turned into a home, and love, the quiet and brave, found its way back to 2 broken hearts. This is not a story about a rescue, it's about choosing love. Again, even when it's hard. If this touched your heart, hit that hype button and subscribe to soul-stirring stories for more tales that heal, inspire, and stay with you. Your support keeps these stories alive. Until next time, believe in kindness, choose love, and remember, even in the storm, someone might be waiting just to bring you home.